Hey yo, it's your boy Sam Duke,
It's your man Tel McHale.
It's your boy Warren P.
and you're listening to another great episode of You
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 Good,
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 Bruh?
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 Yes, sir, y'all. Welcome to another great episode. World's going crazy. As always, there's always something going on in the world, and I don't know if y'all want to speak on and just saying R.I.P. to my brother in Memphis that got killed by the police.
That man got slaughtered.
He got slaughtered by the police, and I just hope that I hope that we can stop doing this, stop having these type of conversations.
Facts.
But today, I came in, wanted to kind of get my mind off of that because I do feel like the trauma that you get relating yourself to that situation is just it for me. It creates an anxiety that I don't want to feel right now, and I will say to anyone that's listening to this, it's okay not to want to feel that way right now.
Facts.
It is all right. Um, Fellas, I had an experience this week, and it was an experience in reconnecting with someone that with a friend that that was real close to my family, real close to me, my brothers. We were real close to him and his brothers. We it's been probably I probably haven't seen him in 16 years. We stay in the same area, but it's just one of those things where, it's one of the friends from back in the day,
Mm.
and he called me on like a whim. He called me on like Facebook Messenger or something because he don't have my number. And well, he has it now, but he didn't have it at the time. And we had this conversation. It was great. It was just good to to speak to somebody that knew me as a child. We was talking about things that we used to talk about as children. um but in that conversation, I think uh I could not overlook um I could not overlook the cycle that I saw. Like I've known him, I've known his father, I've known his brothers, and I could not overlook the fact that his life, after talking to him, looked exactly like his father's life.
Mm.
After all these years, and because I knew him, and because I knew, him
You
as a
knew the history.
child, knew him growing up, I knew how he felt about his father. I knew how he felt about the life that he wanted to live after, once being an adult. it I can't lie. I came over like it made me sad to see, that to him, and I'm not speaking on what he thinks about his life. I'm just speaking on from a standpoint of what I
Observational standpoint.
recall,
Yeah.
from an observational standpoint, him being my friend as a kid, understanding what he wanted out of life, and then seeing he what he is. And I got off the phone, and he wanted to talk to my brother, and me and my brother was talking, and I was just like, you know, I was like, it's interesting to me. Um, it's interesting to me that his life mirrored the life of his father now. His life mirrored the life of his father back then now.
Hmm.
Like and I'm not gonna get too deep into his personal, but it was down to the T, like to the letter, man. Like talking about like how they work, how they bring in their funding,
Mm.
the way that he views life, the way that he views society, and it was just like, yo, this is it to me. It just spoke to the power of the cycle, right? Like it's the cycle of life, and it
Mm.
just got me to thinking, bro. Like cycles are so powerful, man.
I mean, you making me think about it. I mean, it that is the core of existence, isn't it? You
Yeah.
know, it's you pass down your genes, the environment stays the same, so the gene manipulation, activation, or deactivation will be just the same. The only way you can change anything is you have to change the environment so that it activates a different system. What's this, the stat is like 90% or more, even people born into poverty will definitely die in poverty, and their children will be impoverished. So it's not uncommon that you start seeing patterns. That's you say cycles, science, we could say patterns.
Yeah, yeah,
Like it literally just going to follow the same back and forth, unless you intentional. That's kind of part of my psychoeducation and treatment, addiction treatment. Like it's you learn how to cope with world stress by watching your parents, and so you do those patterns as well, and that's how you have the genetic predisposition for addiction as well as the behavioral, and then you end up being an addict just like your mom or dad or other family member that fell down that path. So it exists, it's real. Ironically, it's real in my life. I wanted a boy and girl, just like I grew up as, and a girl was older, and my sister's older than me. So it's like, isn't it interesting that
yeah,
I had that kind of experience? And then even in marriage, I see some patterns similar to my parents' relationship. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing, but I could see how one handles stressful situations and be like, damn, I remember mom and dad are talking like this, or I remember my mom getting mad at my dad like this and reacting like that. Like you could pick if you pay attention, it's real.
yeah.
It's also scary as fuck, especially if you're really not
Yes,
trying to be like your parents.
yes,
You'd be like, wait a minute, god damn it. So I keep in the front of my mind what I experienced growing up so that I can, break the generational curse, if you will, or break the pattern. So yeah, it's real. Does he
Um,
recognize it? I mean, that's what
I,
I'm
I
sorry.
I haven't had the conversation. I think he does because I believe he's been coached. I believe in the way that he chooses to live his life. He was coached into that way because, for instance, learning to live off the government is not an easy. Like I can tell you because I've lived off the government for a little while,
Mhm.
but learning to live off the government in the fashion that he lives off the government, in my opinion, is it's a taught thing. It's not
oh
a
yeah,
Well, sure, yeah.
it is not a
yeah.
it's not something that's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna grow up, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. It's like no, literally he was taught and he followed the pattern to the letter, brother.
What's
Like to
what's
the
the
letter.
what's his opinion of his father?
I told you, like as a kid, he seemed as if he did not want to follow that path.
Okay, that's all. I just
I
want to make
mean, it was
sure.
a contentious relationship. I've seen them physically fight. He got put out and stayed at my house for weeks. Like I saw that growing up, and you could say if I could pick which one would be not like their dad, this was
Yeah.
the one. You get what I'm saying? The one that you would say this is going to be the one that's going to be like, nah, I'm not doing this.
I I can add to that because literally lived it, not with myself but with my brother. Um, we discussed it on previous podcasts that both my brother and I had a very rocky relationship with my father after my mom passed, but my brother, it was apparent that those two, my brother more so like hated my dad, hated my father. If you were to say, "Hey, you acting like him," he'd be ready to fight you off top. But that old adage of you run away from being somebody so much that you end up eventually becoming them. And it wasn't until this past year and a half ago
Mhm.
he kind of had that come to Jesus moment to realize like, yo, I am him. Because they hadn't talked for when I graduated 2009. They talked again in 2021, and even the graduation, it was you could tell it was a lot of faking going on, because I had told them both, like, y'all cut up at my stuff, because I was still talking to my dad, I was still talking to my brother, but no, I said, if y'all cut up at my graduation, like, yo, don't talk to me. Like that's where we at with it, because it's my day, and y'all have y'all little issue, but y'all cut up at my shit. I'm fighting both of you, like, and I don't know who I'm swinging on first. But going back to where we are now, it was things that I used to tell my brother, like, yo, dad does the same thing. Get the fuck out my face with that shit. Nah, I ain't nothing like him. Like, nah, man, fuck you. How dare you compare me to that nigga? You know what he did to me and you. And I'm like, yeah, nigga, I know. That's why I'm telling you. You own the same shit as him. Couldn't hear it. And it was until some real shit happened in his life, to whereas I wasn't talking to him, another person in his life that was very special in his life stopped communicating with him. And now you alone with your thoughts, and you isolated, and you feel like the world against you. And this is, his words to me is like, I really resented, talking about me and, his partner at the time, and thinking y'all were against me. And I had to sit back and realize, if the two people closest to me are both saying the same things about me, there has to be some validity to it. And for me, it was like, bro, I've been telling you this shit for years, but it ain't I told you so. It's the same thing that my dad put in you, it's in me. I was fortunate enough to realize it earlier and to work on those things. And I accepted that what is in him is in me. So I have to work on it.
You have to keep it in the front of your mind. That's right.
Yeah, but it was like the fact that you ran away from it from all these years, you get to where you 38, 37, and it's just like, damn, it's just starting to click, as opposed to you being receptive to that message. So with your mans that you ran into, I kind of probably feel it's the same way, because in your mind, when you living that life, man, fuck my dad, whatever, I ain't never gonna be him, and you trying so hard, and you don't even accept that a part of him is in you, so you don't ever get the chance to work on it.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks to how you fall into those cycles, right? It's like I always talk about the innate things that I see in my children that they may not even see in themselves. Like they even not even just me and my children, the stuff I see my mom do that I see my children do. You get what I'm saying? Like it's just like you start to see that innate aspects, innate attributes, and it's like, and I love the word. The reason I love the word cycle is because it just makes sense to me. I think of a wheel, and I think of momentum. It's once we're living in life right now, we already have our momentum. You see your parents do what they do, and you're living your life. What they're doing is getting ingrained in you, and by the time you even realize it, like you said, you are your parent. You are speaking the way your mama spoke, or your dad spoke. You are seeing your relationship kind of unfold in ways like, oh, look.
But Sam, one thing I need for everybody to acknowledge is that your behaviors are actively being written into DNA. So I'll give you an example. Growing up, my mom, she used to, when she was in deep thought, definitely when she was in deep thought, let's just keep it there. She would clasp her hands and just kind of just mess with her thumbs a little bit, and just, fast forward, I'm a dad, and my 4-year-old, no, it was actually, she was 3. She was 3 years old when she started doing it. Literally the same thing. And it was so identical that my sister saw it and was almost brought to tears, because she was, because my sister, my daughter looks like a light-skinned version of my mother. Let's put it like
she
that.
Does. A lot like mom. You recently did something.
Yeah, so but it's uncanny to see her face and to see the same behavior. So if you catch her in the middle of something, I'm like, what are you doing? She'd be like, nothing. I don't know. Like she's thinking,
Yeah.
thinking, and it's just like I said. You have to be mindful of the fact that our behaviors are written into our DNA, and certain environmental factors will either activate it or not. And that's what I'm saying. Like the cycle continues. I like the visualization of a wheel,
Mhm.
and to keep the family wheel going, you have to, have kids, and we protect that, and we keep the wheel going. And then
Yeah.
if God forbid the family, the children pass before the parents and no other kids are born, that wheel's going to end. It's going to stop spinning. And that's what the human condition is that you want to keep your genetic code continuously being passed down. When you talk about eternal life, that's another way to look at it.
Mm.
My genetic code came from somebody way before I existed, and it is still alive today in me. And God willing, it will continue. So just kind of, govern yourselves accordingly in terms of
Yeah.
behavior and everything else, because that stuff is being written into your genetic code that you're gonna pass down.
Okay. Well, speaking, I think now I'm thinking about myself. Like, okay, speaking of somebody like for me,
Okay.
who I think I've lived my life working to break the cycle. That's been a part of. I mean,
It's
we
documented.
we've documented that. You can go listen to other
Right.
parts of other podcasts, and hopefully one day I can bring my sister in to kind of talk about that. Now that we're recording on Saturdays, I think we'll be able to get her. But I think living my life to break the cycle, but not allowing the pressure of trying to break the cycle to overwhelm me, to kind of get me off of track or knock me off of what I'm trying to do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The idea that, and it's funny because I get questions about this all the time. Like, how did you know you wanted to get married? How did you know you wanted to do this? How did you know you wanted to, be a father? How did you know, that that's what you want out of life? And I was just like, I wanted to. My goal is to break the cycle. I wanted to do it and do it how it should be done, right? And the way that I feel that it should be done for myself and for my life.
Right.
And then you speak to people and they say, "Oh, it's so hard." It's so hard to break that cycle. It's so hard to not end up doing the things that my parents did because of that's what they know, that's what they see, that's what we've encountered. And for me, I've had to continually say I had to continue to make choices that were that were friction based choices. I guess this is the best way I could put it, because it went against my nature. I made choices
okay.
that went against.
Hold on. Let me slow down. Are you
Yeah.
saying so? And correct me. What I'm hearing you say is, well, let me take it from. So you're saying somebody that says, you know what, mama or dad, it was a Rolling Stone. I don't want to be a Rolling Stone, but they have an inclination, like they find themselves chasing
Yes.
but they have to go against what they desire to do in order to break
Oh, it
that pattern.
it comes easy to me. I connect
Right.
with women easily. I think I get that from my father. I think
I
that
definitely get that from my brother.
yeah, and so,
Oh, no, no, you know what? Let me stop. I could say that about my father for the male inclination. My
Yeah.
mother was revered by women. Any woman that knew her, when they came to speak, my mother stopped somebody from committing suicide, and she didn't even know it. But the young lady came and spoke at her funeral. And my mother had no idea that this woman was going through this. Like she just watched my mother, like how she moved, and she loved her for it. And basically what happened was she found out the young woman found out she had breast cancer, and she was just like, I can't handle this. And then my mother spoke at church, and the woman didn't know my mother had stage 4 breast cancer and had survived for all these years from it. And my mother's testimony saved her life, but she told, like, she always watched my mom. What's Miss Neat doing? How's she moving? How she dressed? Oh, I like how she dressed. I like how she present. She's so bold. And that's what I'm saying. Like, women revered her. So I'm not saying women revere me, but I do find it really easy to connect with women. Like, one of my best friends is a woman. And it's like, but when I talk to men about having women as best friends, they find like that's such a foreign thing. Like, what the fuck you mean, son? And she's attractive, so they really be like,
they're really giving you issues.
Yeah,
They're
they
like,
you
yo,
full of
come
shit.
on, man. Like, there's no way. There's no way.
So maybe I got it from both my parents. Is my point? Is like we can't just give it all to our pops, man.
Well,
like,
I mean, I'm not going. I agree with you. I think that my growing up with my mom and watching what she had been through, she called me her sensitive kid. I was the kid that would walk in, see her crying on the floor, and I would like embrace her and just like, Mom, we're gonna be all right. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna make it. And I think that I've taken that piece into my connection with women as well. Like, when women are going through things, I'm like, my wife hates it, but she's like, you're the one that they call, and it's leaked not over to, it's not just my women friends, it's leaked over to her sister and to her cousin, and like other women in her life will still kind of come to me because that's just a trait that I have, right? And so I'll agree with you. My ability to connect with women is not all based on my father. However,
the lustful side.
However,
the fact that I want to smash.
What I'm saying is, there is a nature that I have and I've had, growing up.
Yeah,
and it's wild because most people can't remember me without my wife because I've been with my wife so long. But for those that do, they know, like, I was out there. And even the story with me and my wife, that's a crazy story she never wants me to tell. It is what it is. But regardless of that, what I'm saying is, it went a little bit against my nature to go about my relationship the way I go about my relationship. It goes against sometimes, not, I don't even say go against, because I believe in what I'm doing, but my first thought, my innate movement, how I, if I could live this life that I'm living right now as a faithful married man, and I could be for the streets very comfortably, that's just me. And that's what I'm saying. And so it's like, there is a regular battle for me to get and keep me in the space that I'm in, and
Girl,
and I just
mouthful.
And so that's kind of what I was speaking on. It's like, okay, so when you think about the cycles and the beauty of cycles and the beauty of circles, is the reason it's so easy to do what you've already done is because cycles and cycles are heavy. Like, not cycles, but you put heavy things on cycles. You put planes on wheels, you put cars on wheels.
Yeah,
and
it's architecturally sound,
and it lowers the friction. That's why big things move on cycles, right? And when you think about your life and the heaviness of what you go through every day, when things are difficult, you tend to repeat
go back to what you know.
It
gets remember I said DNA gets activated.
DNA gets activated. And so, from my standpoint, for me to break the cycle, I've had to add friction. I'd have to go up hills. I've had to, I'd have to fight certain battles that, I think that, I would rather at some point not fight, but I understand that in order for me to do what hasn't been done, I got to do what I haven't done before.
Yeah.
And I just feel as if for men, for men in general, because we speak to men, the idea, if you're listening, that you cannot break a cycle, or it's difficult to break a cycle, it is difficult. I want that. I want you to know that. I want you to know that it is hard, because when I was talking to my friend, I come from where he comes from. We live 2 or 3 apartments down from each other. You know, we move in the same way for a very long time, you know, and you know, and we had, when I was talking about living off the government, I lived off the government for a long time, a majority of my young adult life. So I know how to do it very well, you know, but it's the choice that I'll give you an example. We lived on food stamps a good majority of my life, right? There came a time in my mom's life where she said, I'm not going back up to that office. Because, you know, when you're applying for food stamps, when you're applying for government assistance, they get all in your business. They want to know how much money you make. They want paycheck stuff. They want your bills. They want, you know, whatever the case may be. And I think she applied. And sometimes when you apply, they deny you for the smallest reason. It could be
you forgot to cross a T.
You forgot to cross one of the boxes, and they'll deny you. And I remember there was one time she was denied, and she was just like, fuck it. I'm not going back to that office. And that decision broke a cycle. It was a difficult decision because she had 4 children that need to eat, right? But what I'm saying is that decision, in my opinion, broke a cycle for her, you know, and I'm not sure if it broke one for me, but I'm just saying it broke one for her, definitely. And in knowing that, it's the same way I look at how I'm breaking my cycles in my life. Is like, eventually one time you have to say, hey, fuck, I got to do something different. And so for y'all to listen, I want to encourage y'all, if that's you, if you're thinking about that, you know, it's hard, but it's different choices that will lead you out of that.
Well, Warren, did you have something you want to say?
I just wanted to piggyback on something that you said something early, Mikhail.
Oh, okay.
Kind of almost broke me down. When you were talking about the DNA, you know.
Yeah, I saw that. I was going.
Majority of my life, my dad and my brother would always say I reminded them of my mom, with how I moved and interacted, and, you know, me being caring and, you know, stuff like that. And for my whole life, I just used to be like, well, I never had that relationship with my mom, because by the time I was at that age of probably trying to understand life, she had already passed. So it was always a void of me not understanding how I could be like somebody that I didn't have a relationship with. So you saying that just kind of makes it real, puts something behind it. And, you know, this is like something that's been in my mind since 8. Like, so
Warren, I'm gonna tell you something.
It's fucking with me a little bit.
It's not fucking with you. I want you to understand something, man. And I tell this to anybody that I've done grief work with. The person that you're missing, and typically the grief work is from child to parent, right? If you're missing them, look in the mirror, because you literally are a photocopy of that person. Love on yourself the way you want to love on them. Find a space to create a moment where it's just you and that person, and just embrace it. Talk to them. You know what I mean? You could honestly just say to your mom, I wish I remember more about you, but the other day I did this with Whitney, and I thought, you know, my mom be proud of me for that. That's probably coming from her, based on what you've told me about your pops. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Like she's there, bro. She's in you. She is you. And I don't have a problem talking about the feminine side of being human. We come from a man and a woman. There's no way we don't have a feminine side. So when people say, "Oh, you act this way," okay, duh, motherfucker. Like, what the fuck you thought?
Whatever.
So, it's an interesting perspective because I've had to do it myself because I lost my mom back in 2009. So I definitely had to sit in the mirror and be like, "Hey, Neat,
Yeah.
I miss you. I wish
Yeah.
you were here for this. I definitely need some guidance on what to do. And I pray whatever I decide is in line with your values that you taught me." So there's nothing wrong with, taking a moment and embracing yourself as you would your mom because you are her. You did. So, I mean, I
Uh,
appreciate you sharing that though.
no, that's real. It's real. Mikhail, you did something this week, and I think you should share with the show about the balloon release that you did with your kids. And
Oh, yeah.
it would, to me, it was probably the dopest thing I've seen on the internet in a while. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Wow. I definitely didn't expect that effect.
No,
But
it because I know you, because I
yeah.
know, and I've known you for a while, your mom didn't just pass, right? So the the s- the seeing of how you honored her in that moment was just really dope to me. It moved me a little bit.
I mean, I appreciate it, but I'm gonna have to give props to my wife, because she's the one that came up with the idea of doing it. Because for me, I used to just buy my mom a birthday card on her birthday, sign it, and put it away. You know what I mean? Like put it down, let it sit on my desk, open or whatever. And then over time I would close it and I put it all in this shoebox. So it was just a personal thing. And early on, in our family, when the kids were born, obviously after as she had passed, because they were born in 2012. I can say July 18th. But the point is,
Yeah.
um, they were born 3 years after she had passed. And she desperately wanted me to have grandkids before she passed. She actually put them in her will. Like,
Oh, really?
yeah. So,
Whoa, that's cool.
bruh, she actually bought them clothes before they were
Whoa.
born, before I even met Courtney.
What are
Don't
you
you know
talking?
those? Do you know those clothes fit in
Talk
the
about
season they were made for?
manifesting, man.
The
That's
coats,
wild.
the coats fit in the wintertime.
Whoa.
How did at the right age? How did she know? Okay, I'm getting off
Experience.
topic. I'm getting off topic. But anyway, it's
Mama
crazy.
always knows, bro.
It's freaking me out while I'm talking
Yeah.
about it. But Courtney said, so she bought a birthday cake because kids love birthday cake and they love birthdays. So that she took the picture I had of her, and so we started with singing "Happy Birthday, Grandma." We miss you, all this other stuff, so that the kids could be connected to someone that they physically had never met, and they understood where they came from. So over time, the kids started asking me questions about her. How is this? What did grandma do for this? And da 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 da. And they look at her picture and they say, "Hey, grandma," like they are building an altruistic relationship with someone they never met. Um, and then it graduated to the balloon release. So the video you're talking about is not the first one, but you can see that the progression for the children
Yeah.
and what they say definitely indicates that they are connected. Like I remember one day, Michaela cried. She was like, "I really wish I had got a chance to meet Grandma, and I think I would have loved to have hung out with her because she loves to hang out with Courtney's mom." So
Yeah.
that kind of energy is, while it may feel sad, is actually quite healthy, and it creates a human connection to someone, and it shows that your child can connect, even though they don't have to physically be in the presence of them. So I'm proud of them, but thank you for asking me about it. It's something we do, and Courtney shares it. She shares everything though.
Yeah, but I loved it, man. When I tell you it did something. It did something for me, and my children, they met their great grandma probably 2 years into being alive,
Mhm.
and she passed, but they remember her,
Yeah.
and it's wild because I get calls every year for some reason. I just think it's just the spirit of of the who they call grandma mama.
Yeah.
It's a spirit. Her teachers will be like, Brielle just was inconsolable today. She misses her great grandma, and she's like, who is grandma mama? I was just like, that's a
Mhm.
great grandma,
Right.
and it's like that's
That's her
how they
grandma mama.
yeah, grandma mama, right? That's how they differentiate her from their grandma. So they added a mama to it.
Right.
Kids, man,
Facts.
it makes sense. The
It
idea of
does.
great grandma
Yeah.
versus grandma mama, it's like,
Right.
okay, which one actually makes more sense? But yes, I mean they go into these phases sometimes where you can just tell that they're connected to them, and it brought me to, and this is so childish of me, but it's real. One of my favorite movie is Lion King. Like, it's one of my favorite
Mm.
movies, right? And the reason I love it so much is it's the ancestral attachment that you see through
Mhm.
the first movie and even the second movie. I know, because a lot of people like Lion King 1. I'm actually a fan of Lion King 2 just as much as I am Lion King 1. But and the reason I say that is because for me it's all about the way that they set the table.
The
You know,
lineage, yeah.
Lion King 1 is all about the circle of life, right? And you see
Classic track.
the
Mhm.
whole circle. That's the cycle. You see the whole circle of life in Lion King 1. Lion King 2 is all about it's all about the connection you have to the ancestors. They even started the song, like I said, the way they set the table. Lion King 2's intro song is He Lives in You. So the Lion King 1 is the circle of life, and you know what, we all know what happened in that movie. And then Lion King 2 is about the validation from the ancestors, making it clear to you, like,
Mhm.
he lives in you. He watches over everything that you do. Speaking of Mufasa to his son, and it's like,
Mufasa.
and if you haven't heard that intro song, even if you haven't watched Lion King 2, you have to listen to the intro song to Lion King 2, because it's so powerful, it's so real, and it speaks to the ancestral connection that you have with their ancestors, the real deep connection that you have with your ancestors. And I think that's the reality, the idea that just because someone's gone, that they're not still inside of
Here.
you, they're not still here within you. And even the idea of the eternal life, Mikhail, that was some deep shit. I'm not gonna lie to you. The idea that somebody from thousands of years ago, life
Mhm.
is a part of your life and a part of your story is so deep and so real. And I think that
But I'm gonna say this. That's why I think I don't think people really appreciate DNA
hmm,
because they associate it with either criminal justice
Yeah.
or
yeah,
who's the daddy.
fingerprints, Mari.
Right?
OJ.
Yeah,
You know, the real thing about DNA is what you just said.
yeah,
Like we can. This is what's amazing about current modern man is that we have the capability and the historical data to track back almost what is it 2,000 years, or at least
at least, yeah.
close to 1,000 years back. You know where your ancestors came from based on how it's documented. You could find the story of your people. For us that have come from the continent of Africa, you could track back to the story of your people to understand what they went through. Like when they say we have a warrior inside of us, that's not just hype.
No, it's not bullshit.
We had farmers inside of us. That's not just hype. Like all that stuff can get activated.
And that's what I love about. I don't know if you guys watch this show. There's a show that comes on, I think, PBS. where they like track through, like they bring famous people on,
Oh,
and then they go through.
Henry Louis Gates.
Yeah, Henry Louis Gates,
Yeah.
and he goes and he's a historian, and he goes through your history and your lineage. Just to name a few that I've seen. He did the one with Nas, where
Yeah.
he showed Nas the plantation, all the people that his people came from, and Nas went and bought it, and he like still owns it. And then I think with Issa, I think she actually, once again, when you talk about the warriors, she was like some of her ancestors fought in the Haitian Revolution, and
Right.
in like the American Revolution, that type of stuff. It's
Right.
really, really deep, cool stuff. And I, hopefully in the future somebody can say something cool about great granddaddy Sam.
I know.
Have you seen the
Our
Michael
granddaddy-
Che skit to that?
You said what?
The Michael Che skit to that?
No, I haven't. Michael
Oh,
Chase.
man, that shit is so. you got to look at it.
I'm still grinning on my ancestors. McKill had a dope podcast back
I know,
in the
right?
day.
They're
That
like,
changed the attitude on therapy.
That's cool. That's the beauty of it, man. It's like everything we do is we're leaving a legacy, right?
Right.
Or leaving something that people
Well,
can take a look at.
Let me just say this, that, and this is kind of a spin back towards the therapy component. It's like, part of our psyche is identity. People always say, well, what you want to do for a living? Who are you? Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And I feel like part of the reason people struggle with answering that question is because they haven't done any research on who they are. Because we are genetic copies of our predecessors, of our ancestors. So who are you? Well, for me, I know that half of me was part of the bourgeoisie of the 1900s for Black people. With the first school superintendents, the dentists, first Black dentists, first that type of first.
Yeah.
Right. That's my ancestry. But the other side of me is they ran moonshine. They were great farmers. Staples in society. Like, who am I? I could tell you who I am based on the fact that I know my lineage. Like I already know the lineage all the way back to West Africa. So that's what I'm saying. Like, that type of information, while it may not be useful in a meeting at Wells Fargo Bank, is definitely useful when you matriculate through school, and you're being tested on your character and all this other stuff. You need to have a strong identity. Otherwise, you'll be manipulated into being whatever people want you to be. And that's what I feel like is happening in our community. Because we're disconnected, we've been manipulated to believe that we have to be hella aggressive, that we've been made to believe that our women don't need a man, but in actuality don't even know how to be with a man, to be frank with you, because they felt the need to be one. So when they find one, they don't know how to be with one. And then that causes the breakup, because there is a disconnect. And men, I'm not taking it off of us, we don't know how to embrace the woman that we have. Like, we're sitting up here. Because we sit up here projecting, we're projecting a European standard on our women. We've been manipulated to believe that's what our women are supposed to be, like this European standard. We got to cut that shit out.
That's wild, because it's like it's kind of like you fall into a different cycle by not knowing who you are.
Absolutely. You'll fall into whatever cycle the people that are in power want you to be. And that, take that for what it's worth. And I've been through it. I've been what people thought we were.
For my Dragon Ball Z fans out there, I'm gonna jump out the gym with this comparison.
Jump out the gym.
Vegeta was always my favorite character, because he always talked about Saiyan pride. Goku, main character, didn't grow up around other Saiyans, so he kind of was indoctrinated by Earth standards. But Vegeta always knew who he was. He knew his lineage. He knew where he came from. So even though him and Goku's ideology was different, I appreciated Vegeta because he stayed who he was. because he's
True.
like, this is
True,
where I
true.
come from. These are the people that raised me, and
Mhm.
these are the values that I stand on. And I'm not backing down from anybody because I know who I am. Like when he finally becomes you know, Super Saiyan, like you
Super
can
Saiyan.
tell, like that's not just pride for him, that's pride for his people overall.
Yeah.
Like one of
I
us
mean,
got
and
here.
and even because Goku became Super Saiyan first, right? So we get in
Yeah.
our bag. We get in our anime bag. Goku became Super Saiyan first. But what was wild was even though they were adversarial at the time, you could tell the level of respect for who Goku was jumped when he saw that Goku became,
Super Saiyan.
Super
Yeah, because
Saiyan. Like,
Mhm.
yeah,
we there. Like the legend is
he's just
true.
like, yeah,
Well, I mean, that's the evidence of innate ability versus environment.
yeah,
Some of us, some of us can rise to the top because it's in us. The others rise to the top later because it was shaped. So, at the end of the day, we need to understand what our oppressors understand. Genetics first, environment second.
yeah. No,
So
that's
we're,
real.
you know what I'm saying? Because we're born into it first, but now we create the environment to shape the person to be who we want them to be. And versus if you know who you are, you can't be shaped. I always say I wish the first, 10 years of our children's lives, they were segregated. I would prefer them to be in a school like the MOTEP school over there off of West Side, off 285. I can't think of the street, but they go from K through, I think K through 8,
Mm-hmm.
which those are very impressionable years. And if you're not being quote unquote indoctrinated, and in this instance of who you are and where you come from, once you get into the space where you're not necessarily safe, you could be manipulated. You could be led astray.
Yeah.
But if you are grounded in who you are, you they can't mess with you.
Can't move you at all.
You can't move you at all. The needle will not move. And so that's why,
And this is a conversation that we talked about. I'm gonna bring
yeah.
somebody on the show to have this conversation,
Okay.
especially because I do believe that in our formative years, it makes a difference who teaches you about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a difference to be, especially as Black people, to be taught by Black people, to understand what Black people are capable of. It's wild because I was having this conversation with one of my friends from up north, and she was just like, she didn't realize that when people talk about Black people, they're not talking about Black people from up north. Because, and this was her take. She's like, because she had never, like, when she came down here, and I think Dion talks about it as well. Dion Sanders, he was like, she came to Atlanta, and it was her first time seeing a Black person riding in the Benz.
Mm-hmm.
It was her first time seeing Black doctors, Black engineers, Black,
Elite.
whatever.
Yeah.
Black elite, and seeing that Black people can do certain things. And she was just like, it does something to your self-esteem when you see
Right.
people like you doing things that are aspirational, and people like you who are teaching their own.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more of that going on in the South than anywhere else. Because you're talking about up north, it's a long time before they see
Right.
Black teachers.
I mean, I think that's one of the things that I'm really proud of as a dad that Courtney and I have been able to do is we made sure that I put my children in the presence of Black engineers, Black architects, Black pilots. Like I've literally gone to programs. Like the most recent was we did the builder, the Black developer. They did this program where they introduced themselves to the community, but it was for kids to teach the kids the building process. All the way down to the what you call it, the civil engineer, talking about how to drain, how to grade property so that you don't flood the streets, and that like the whole process, approval and all. And one will say, well, what's the value in a child knowing that? Well, tell me what's not valuable about a child knowing that, one, this is how a house is made, but two, that you can play a part in that process because you see somebody that looks like you, that
Mhm.
talks to you, respects you, that looks like your parents. The Black Pilot program over off Fulton Industrial Airport, there's 2 Black pilot schools over there. And I say 2 Black pilot, but it's Black owned pilot schools, is what I meant to
Yeah.
say. But it was produced, the program for children introduced the children to aviation careers. Like putting them in front of the people that are actually doing the work helps give kids confidence, gives them also a conversation. In every instance, our children talk about what it would be like to be that in a career.
And I,
So
Mhm.
go ahead.
I want to add on to that because Tech developed a program and I helped assist called S- A Hero in Me program
Mhm.
many years ago. And we would bring in different professionals to speak to the kids. But before we would speak to the kids, we would ask them, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And when we did it in mainly Black or Latino neighborhoods, it was athletics, entertainment.
Mhm.
You may get a random, oh, I want to be a firefighter or I want to
Mhm.
be a cop. But when you do it in the suburban neighborhoods, I remember kids raising their hand. I want to be a video game designer. I
Mhm.
want to be a pilot. I want to be a graphic engineer.
Mhm.
I want to be careers to whereas I know when we was going to the hood, they weren't even exposed to.
They don't even know
Had
it
And
no clue.
exists. Yeah, they don't even know it
didn't even
exists.
know it. And it just I remember me and Tet would look at each other and be like, damn man, like we gotta find a way to expose these kids to different lanes, different avenues to whereas, if you think, we hit old Biggie line, what a selling crack rock, so you got a wicked jump shot. Like that shit was real life. And when you go on to 5 different libraries within a 2-week time frame, and you seeing the same kids say the same thing over and over again, like damn. So when you say bringing those kids to those events from a person that has been in the same neighborhoods but different avenues of that neighborhood, it really does ring like heavy to me because kids need to see that shit. Not
Yeah.
even kids, adults. Because I look at when we were younger, you see someone on
I'm
TV
about to
and
say
you're like,
adults.
nah, like that shit ain't real. Like when people used to talk about the Cosby Show, they used to say that was fake. That there couldn't be a Black lawyer and a Black doctor married to each other being successful, and that was actually happening in the world.
Yeah.
In
And
real
I
life.
look
Yeah.
at social media today as the new TV, to whereas kids in the hood may think, oh man, that's just social media. That shit ain't, it's there, but it ain't for us. But they not being exposed to different things. Cause I mean, seeing it in your hand versus actually meeting and being introduced to somebody that does that changes your viewpoint at any age.
I mean, so I'm gonna just say this. They What we're saying is great. But I don't want it to be something that, what I'm trying to say is I don't want us to forget, for us to have these moments of enlightenment or epiphany, and we're talking about hood environments. We're talking about, you know, do these kids feel safe? To think outside the box, you got to be in a space where you're sitting on top of the box. The box, has the child's physiological needs been met?
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Do they have
It's
something to eat? Has their safety needs been met? Because what we're talking about, and if we're talking about like Maslow's hierarchy needs, right? Physiological safety, and the area that we need to get the kids to is love and belonging.
yep.
That's where they develop connections. If they can't master the first 2 levels, love and connection matters not. So they see my man up there at the trap house getting money. So physiological and safety needs say, hey, I need to holler at him.
Yeah.
because he gonna help me
Yeah.
provide those things, and that's why our kids get locked into jump shots and tracks, beats, because that's stuff that they see often that provides those first two levels. Because of my strategy with my family, we've been able to get our kids to love and belonging. That's why they do have a connection with my mother, even though they never met her, because they have physiological needs and safety needs are being met on a constant basis. I even talk to them about
About the knee. Yeah.
those things.
Yeah.
So we have to understand that while we are saying, hey, expose your kids to this, first things first, can you stabilize them?
Mm.
And that's the real. And you just mentioned a way to potentially break a cycle. I mean,
Yeah.
and just to bring the conversation fully back around, the
Yeah.
reality is you introduced a way to break a cycle, and that it. I loved where this conversation went. To be honest with you, I love where it started, and I love where it ended, because where it ended is, I agree with you. I think that my friend probably, and I know, I'm not saying I think, I know, because I know him and I know what he's been through since we've, you know, haven't, spoken. And I know that some of his needs were not met. And in listening to you say that, I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, some of his needs were not met. And so he could not see past the fact that, oh, well, I need to do this so that I can live,
Mm-hmm.
so that I can pay my bills. And that's actually a part of the conversation when we talk. It was just like, yeah, I need to do this so I can pay my bills. And I was like, I mean, you have to meet those first needs before you can kind of get out and understand that there's a whole life
Yep.
outside of a government check. There's a whole lot that you can accomplish in life if you decide to be an active member of society. And
Right.
and so, I think that, to close, I did talk about, when we opened, I talked a lot about my dad and a lot about the cycles that I had to go against the grain in order to be where I'm at and stay where I'm at, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I did want to, just give a shout out to my grandfather, man. Just a quick shout out, just to say that he was that moral compass for me, and what he instilled in me, I think, gave me the tools that I needed in order to continually break the cycles that I have had to break in my life. And when we talk about our kids and them wanting to be connected to the ancestors, I just could not help but say, man, I have to I have to remember what it was like to have my grandfather in my life. And I play that Lion King song when I miss him, to be honest with you. When I
Mm.
miss him, I play that Lion King song because it reminds me that he lives in me and he watches over everything that I do. And that's my final word. You guys have final thoughts before we wrap?
Yeah. I mean, I just want to say in regards to cycles, they're good cycles and they're bad cycles. But the number one thing you have to realize to break that bad cycle is understand that you are a part of the cycle. What was in that person before you is in you, and you have to identify that and you have to accept that. It may not be as bad or as good as the individual before you or next to you, but it's in you. And until you accept that it's in you, it's going to be very, very challenging to move forward. You can't run from who you are. You were who you were before you got here,
Mm.
as Hope
What's real?
said. So, but it's on you to make that change and never feel as if something is too much to overcome. Because if you feel that way, as a man thinketh, a man doeth.
That's
Just on some
real.
real shit. And like Sam said earlier, like he had to step outside of the lane that was put in front of him to overcome that. And just like
Mm.
he did it, Mikhail has done in his life, I have in mine. Anybody out here listening to it, you can do the same.
That's
Please
real.
know that. It's gonna be challenging, but you have it within you to overcome that challenge. Never
Yes.
forget that.
Yes, sir. For more conversations like these, you guys, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook. It's You Good Bruh Podcast, Twitter, You Good Bruh Pod, and please go subscribe and share. Get the notifications on our show, YouTube. Please do that. Share the word. I am Sam Dupe, and I am good.
Hey, I'm Till McKell, and I am good.
I'm Warren P, and I'm good.
And just like that,
We out.
we're gone.
True.